Welcome to the Between the Pages podcast, brought to you by Boldly Seeking Ministries. Join the conversation every other Wednesday with the team and other special guests as we navigate how we can live a bold faith in between the valleys and the mountaintops of life. This episode is sponsored by Lakeview Covenant Church, where together they pursue Christ and advance his priorities across the street and around the world. Now, let's get to this week's conversation.
Hi, and welcome back to our Boldly Seeking podcast. I am so excited to be co-hosting with Elizabeth today. We're talking about back to school, whether you're in school now, or maybe you're done with school, or maybe you've been out of school for like 20 years and you're just listening to our podcast for fun. We love it.
Yes.
It's episode 3 already. That's amazing.
Oh my goodness.
We're doing great already. I feel like our train is just plugging along on the train tracks, and we're going to keep going with these deep conversations and these cool topics.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to open up in prayer, actually, if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all of our listeners that are just coming alongside of us in this conversation and learning more about you and about each other. And I just pray that we would have a great rest of our day. All right. So we're talking about back to school. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could start off with like saying where you are now in your schooling.
Okay.
And then anything else you want to add?
Okay.
Yeah, so I just graduated high school last spring, so I'm a freshman in college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And to be honest, I don't think I would have graduated without Jenny's help here. Geez. She was my tutor, and so I really appreciated her. But yeah, so I'm just like a freshman I almost said high school, in college, and it's definitely weird. But I think you're kind of in a new season yourself. You're second year teaching. So yeah. You can tell us about that now, Jenny.
Yeah. So my college experience was pretty good. I did 4 years so that I could be a teacher. And got my license for K through 8. And then after college, it was actually COVID year. So like my student teaching was all messed up and it was online, and I didn't really like get that full student teaching experience all the way through like March to graduation, but that's okay. And then after college in that fall, I took a long-term sub position in second grade. So I did that a little bit in elementary, and then now I am in my second year of middle school science and math. Yeah.
So fun.
Very cool. Shout out to all my middle schoolers. Yeah. So that's where we kind of are now. I wanted to talk a little bit about how it's easy or hard to like trust in the Lord when you're giving up like sleep to study for a test, or when you're like so tired that you just don't even want to get up and go to school, or even like how your friends can impact your walk with the Lord too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I went to a very big public high school until COVID, obviously, but I mean, those were some tough times. And I was doing so much at church and like doing so much that it was like you said, so many sleepless nights of like, I have an assignment due tomorrow, I had practice after school, I'm so tired, I have to get up early, and it was definitely difficult to keep focused on Jesus. And I mean, I talked about this in another episode of how like with COVID, it just, when it hit, it was like a heart check for everything of like, man, I don't have school. I can't see my friends. I don't have worship team. I'm stuck at home. And while it was hard at first, I realized it was so good because I'd gotten wrapped up in friends and in drama. And it just took so much of my energy and my happiness and I wasn't living truly for the Lord because I was just so wrapped up in everything else I was doing. And I couldn't see through it. And so it was really nice to just get away from all the crazy and just recenter and refocus. Because it was definitely, I mean, high school, it's tricky. I'm sure you in college and in high school, like, had those experiences where you're like, man, this is not easy.
Yeah. I went to a much smaller school than Elizabeth, but it still had its challenges because since it was smaller, everybody knew each other too. So like the drama could be very high at times.
Yeah.
And like obviously rumors spread wherever you are. So it was really hard to like not gossip for me in school age. Especially like high school and middle school when everybody knows each other. It's just like you get caught up in that gossip and that rumor train, and it's really hard to get out of it, especially when your friends are doing it with you, the gossiping and stuff. It's like that's just a common ground that people want to talk about at like sleepovers or like after practice or like in group chats and stuff.
For sure.
So I think that's still something that kids struggle with today, especially with social media and like all of that, the cyberbullying and like hurting each other online behind a screen is a lot easier for kids nowadays than it was in the past, I think.
For sure.
Yeah. Hopefully like that stops eventually with like counselors and more emphasis on mental health in schools. I feel like that's becoming more prevalent, especially after COVID, when I think adults and administrators were realizing how heavy of a weight the students had to bear during that COVID, like
for sure.
virtual learning stuff. So it's exciting to see that kind of support out there for kids. Yeah. But how do you think like youth group impacted your like high school time too?
Well, when I was in like youth group, we went through a new youth pastor kind of right in my freshman year, and then with COVID, it was just everything was changing and we had so many different formats. And so I feel like a lot of times for kids who grew up in the church, that's kind of their rock. And I'm sure because you went through Lakeview's youth group here, and I'm sure you can say it was a good time. For me, it was definitely different because it was like COVID and like all of it, and then coming back and losing all these people. You're like, man, like I had some good friends here, and now every time I come, there's less and less people. There's like new faces. There's people trying to figure out this. It's a total like weird situation, but at the same time, it was always like a place I could come to and just like breathe and relax and just be great, like man, like people my age worshiping Jesus. Like church, you are worshiping with other people, but they're not always your peers. Youth group, it's like kind of a safe space. You're like, okay, I go to school with you. If I ever need like something, I'm like, man, like if I need this person, like I can go talk to them at school, or like if they need me, they can find me at school, or like hey, like are you coming to youth group? Or just having that accountability to kind of invite people or like check in with others, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope you as listeners have like some sort of outlet like that, like youth groups or some sort of like small group Bible study, even if you have like a group of friends that meet during lunch or something once a week as like prayer partners. You can even do like a pen pal program I've heard of. Another one I wanted to talk about that's coming up actually. Well, maybe after we release this, it's probably over. But it's called See You at the Pole, and they do it. I think they do it all across the nation on a certain day in the fall time, and everyone can gather around the flagpole like before school starts, and it's just really neat to like drive past schools and see students coming together, uniting over something common like that, because they pray for our country, they pray for our leaders, for our teachers and other students, and it's just encouraging when the world can be so like different and not united on a lot of topics that we can come together on one common ground and be like, yeah, we need prayer right now, and coming around the flagpole and praying for each other is super important. So I know my school did that. I think your high school did too, which it wasn't mandatory, so it was probably depending on like who came and stuff, a big group or small group.
We for sure had one teacher who like was kind of in charge of all of those like religious activities, which was really, really nice to have her around, because in a very non-Christian school, you don't know like who, you know what I mean? It would get totally pushed under the rug if there wasn't someone like initiating it. So good.
Another program that's kind of for athletes is like the Fields of Faith one that I remember doing in high school that I really appreciated. It was like an outside organization, but it was also within all the high schools in our local area. And we would go, I think it was on a Wednesday night, to a huge football field, and there'd be a speaker there and a lot of students giving their testimonies, a lot of athletes sharing like how they could see God working through their season, or maybe an injury like on the field or on the court or something. So that was always super encouraging to me as a high school student. Can you think of any other? I think those are the main two that I wanted to talk about, was See You at the Pole and the Fields of Faith thing. So hopefully there's some sort of...
Well, yeah, like for me going into college, I'm trying to find like a good campus like ministry, and there's so many options, and I'm like,
that's good.
I don't know like which one to go to. It is good, but it's like there's like they all have their own different thing. They
like
meet different time. Yeah, so it's like trying to find that, but there's like InterVarsity, Crew, Chi Alpha. They're all over. And then like the same people who put on Fields of Faith, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. They have a college group too, which is really awesome to see, like in college, kids taking their faith so seriously. 'Cause in high school it's kind of like, yeah, I'm a Christian, like you know what I mean? And to like kind of be like, okay, in college, like everyone's just like, this is what they want to do. Like, this is where we're going. So
that's a perfect segue to our next point.
Oh,
good job.
Thank you.
Because I wanted to talk about like how is it different in college than high school with now your faith is more your own and you're still living at home, but a lot of people who live on the dorms and stuff are like, where do I find that kind of space that I didn't have in high school? Do you see a big difference?
Yes and no. I feel like a lot of kids when they move out can fall off from their faith too, because like when they're at home, their parents are like, okay, you're going to church, like you're going to youth group, come on, like let's do this thing. Whereas in college you're like, man, I'm not at home, my parents aren't gonna tell me where to go, what to do, like I can do whatever. But at the same time, there's definitely more people I feel like on fire, and they're wanting to start these campus ministries. They're wanting to go because that's like a part of them, and I think that's so awesome to see. And I'm sure like you, because you moved out to, did you move out to?
No, but I had to drive kind of far.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too, when you don't live on campus and you're not in the dorms, you kind of feel that disconnection of like, oh, I can't really join crew because I don't I don't really know the people. But I would just encourage anyone who's listening or even is looking to start something like that. Like even if you're out of college, you could definitely see what is available around like local campuses and stuff to be a part of and be a leader and things like that. Yeah. I think it's time for our joke.
Oh.
I looked up a joke before this. It's not that good, but okay.
I'm ready for it.
So a kid comes home from his first day of school and his dad is like, what did you learn today? And the kid responds with, not enough. I have to go back tomorrow.
That was good. That
Thank
was
you.
a good one.
I did not come up with that.
I know.
I looked that up before I came.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That is very true. I've definitely had those moments of like, I have to go back again tomorrow.
Yeah. Apparently I didn't learn enough because I have to go back.
Duh.
I wanted to ask too if there's any like teachers that made a positive impact on you through elementary, middle school, or high school or college, I guess.
For sure. I think in high school, like, so after COVID, I stayed online, and I had one teacher who my last semester of high school, I went back and I took her class in person. She was like my biggest rock in high school. Like I had her for English 3 years out of my 4. And I would literally just go to her room. I'd drink hot cocoa in her classroom. She'd give me chocolate, like that. She'd have the Dove chocolates, and I like days when I'd have a bad day, she would just give me a chocolate. And I still have a couple of the wrappers because the message like in it, I was like, I needed this today.
That's
Thank
so
you.
Sweet.
Yeah, and so for sure. And she was a Christian, and so I always like knew that when I had something going on, she wrote references for me, like all sorts of stuff. She just was like there, and it was so. Honestly, I don't know if I would have made it through high school without her. Like. It just, she was there through like everything. I would just cry to her. I would sit in her room and talk. And yeah. Did you have any teachers, Jenny, that were like that?
Yeah, I think I have a few in mind, but I wanted to talk about one of my like college teachers because I didn't go to a Christian college. So my whole life growing up, I went to a Christian school. So then my first experience with like a non-Christian person teacher was in college, but still like same uplifting kind of things that you were talking about. I could always go to her when I had a question, and then she just was very like down to earth. I couldn't tell if she was a Christian or not, and sometimes that's okay. It's like she was still very present and very willing to like listen to the students, and I feel like that's really a main thing that students want is like a teacher that is willing to listen to them and give them chocolate if they need it, or like just help encourage them throughout the day, because the last thing you want to do after a hard day of school is like do more homework. So I think that's definitely a hard part to do when you're transitioning back to school, is learning how like you have to wake up early in the morning again, and now you don't have your summer schedule. You're back to like a fall routine of making lunches and after school practices and stuff like that. Was there a time where you felt like you couldn't feel God in high school or college?
For me, it was probably like beginning to middle of my freshman year of high school, where like in 8th grade, I made like a really solid like group of friends. We're like, we're gonna be best friends for the rest of our lives. Like we are like woohoo. Freshman year, oh, like where'd we go? Like we had drama, we split. Like I have no friends. My church friends, like there's drama there because of a boy, and now there's drama with the boy, and I'm like, I don't know like where I'm going, like what to do. I'm like, I have like no friends. Like I have like a couple people I talk to, but it's like now that like we're like divided and like I don't have Christian friends, and I just like I just was like spiraling, and I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what to do, and I like completely just didn't even like think about God, like, hey, like help me here. Like I just kind of was like, I'm on my own. Like I am alone. I have nobody. And I just like totally lost sight of like, even though I'm alone, like there's still someone that cares about me. Like I just like, and I just completely blocked it all out. Yeah. But thankfully we made it through that. But like, yeah. What about you? Did you have an experience?
I'm trying to think of one. A little bit like transitioning from high school to college was like, all right, God, I want a straightforward answer of what I should do after high school. And sometimes we don't get that. And that's when our doubts can like just eat away at our faith a little bit, and thinking like, God, where are you? And I want a clear answer and I don't have one. You're not answering my prayers. And that's such like a hard time. Like you said, people can just fall off of their faith because they don't have that root. They don't have that strong community, those friends that you had that you thought were like, oh, these are my solid Christian friends, that kind of fall apart a little bit. And then you have to realize, okay, I need another group of friends, another community. And that's so important to have, especially in like middle school and high school. That's your world, is your friend group. And that's where everything resonates. Like the people you text and the accounts you follow and things like that have such a great impact on you. And you have to make sure that it's positive, because you can get sucked into the negativity so hard.
For sure.
Yeah.
As a teacher, how have you seen that in your middle school students? I mean, I'm sure they confide in you too, but like, have you seen any similar things from like what we're talking about? Yeah,
for sure. I think a lot of what kids are struggling with right now is just looking at social media accounts and saying like, oh, I don't have to go to school because I could just be a YouTuber or something and make millions, and I don't even have to go to school. True. Or a lot of them ask like, what's the relevance of school? Like, why do I have to write this essay? Or why do I have to learn about the cell structure? And so I really like tying it back to like, we're learning it because God gave it to us to learn, kind of. And then I think if I make it more hands-on, then they're willing to experiment with it more and be like, oh, this is something that I could see myself doing. Or maybe it's not. Maybe they find their interest in something else. And I have to realize that not every student is going to love science, or not every student is going to be a mathematician. And that's okay. That's where like God is planting seeds even in those areas where they're not super interested in it. And I just have to keep remembering like, I'm there to show God's love. And like, that's a huge part of like my motto for teaching, I guess. That's awesome. And I think it's so cool that you are teaching at the same high school you graduated from. I think that's really awesome. Super crazy. I went there for like 12 years and then now I'm teaching there, which I think is cool because I get to keep that legacy going and things like that. That's awesome. Well, we definitely want to continue this conversation on our Instagram and our other social media platforms. We're on TikTok a little bit, which is exciting. Elizabeth is helping lead through that, all those videos and stuff. If you'd like to give us a review too, we are like just starting this podcast. It's only the 3rd episode. So we would love some feedback. If you have any questions or comments on it, we would love to hear from you guys. We also have our website is still up and running. It's pretty cool. It's got like a good style and good colors, I think too. Rebecca's always like making sure that our color platform is that's our joke of like, it's on brand. It's on brand. So we'd love for you to check out our website at boldlyseeking.org. And then you can follow us on Instagram and those platforms too. We are just so excited. Oh, we have to talk about any like last minute encouragements. We almost forgot about that. Whoopsies. Plugging our promo beforehand. Do you have any last words? I always liked writing a Bible verse on a Post-it note, and I would even stick it in the bathroom mirror at school sometimes so that other people could see it too. I don't know if that's something that you could probably do at a public school as well.
I think you
But
can.
finding a Bible verse or some piece of encouragement, sticking it on a mirror either at your
Yeah.
house or somewhere where you see it in the morning, or even at like a public restroom would be
Mhm.
good too.
I think for me, it would be like in the mornings before you go to school, kind of like reality check yourself. Like, I'm going into this like scary thing. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, just reminding yourself it's going to be okay and that God's got you and you are not alone. Like that, if I could have told my little freshman self, you are not alone, I
Yeah.
totally would have.
Yeah.
So if you need that to hear that, you are not alone, no matter where you are in life. You are not alone, Jenny.
You're not alone, Elizabeth.
So I think that's,
Great. That's a
Yeah.
perfect way to wrap us up. We will see you next week, either on the live video or our audio listeners too.
Yes.
So we're so excited. Thanks for listening and see you next week.